chewing gum and he said, "Do you have any more gum?" And I went like this. I was trying to be cute. And I was like, "Nope, only this." And he took it out of my hands and put it in his mouth. And I was like, "I'm picking up what you're putting down, sir."
To uncover their roots, we've used every tool available. Genealogists comb through paper trails stretching back hundreds of years. Whoa! While DNA experts utilize the latest advances in genetic analysis to reveal secrets that have lain hidden for generations. That's a little shocking.
I'm gonna cry.
And we've compiled it all into a book of life, a record of everything we found.
I wasn't expecting that.
Wrong side of history.
I think this is someone who wanted a little redemption.
Yeah.
I can relate.
Kristen and Dax have been together for almost 20 years, and they may think that they're as close as they can be.
But in this episode, they're going to discover that they have far more in common than they even imagined, and see each other more completely than ever before.
Corporate support for season 11 of Finding Your Roots was provided by
Passion, persistence, determination, standing strong with the HIV community. At Gilead, we know this is what it takes to enact change. All of us working together to end the HIV epidemic for everyone, everywhere.
Ancestry can help you shine a light on the family journey that led to you. Detailed DNA results and family history memberships. Ancestry, proud to support this PBS program.
At Johnson & Johnson, we're working to connect health and care for every provider, for every patient, for everyone. Because we know what those two simple words can do. Johnson & Johnson, the health and care company.
Support was also provided by Ford Foundation, the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, Candace King Weir, and by the Inkwell Society, together with many of its members. Major funding was also provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by generous contributions to your PBS station by viewers like you. Thank you.
Kristen Bell has a golden touch. Over the past 2 decades, she's become an icon and won fans of all ages by crafting an array of indelible characters, starring in cult classics,
I love people. I'm a people person.
blockbuster film franchises,
I wish it could be like this all the time.
and prestige TV series.
I'm not just a big, beautiful, utterly perfect cartoon giraffe.
The common thread? Kristen has the ability to take any role, hero or villain, embrace it, and make us laugh. It's a talent she's been honing for as long as she can remember.
I think it started out with mimicking. I have always been really auditorily sensitive, and so I would hear a chime from the television and just immediately mimic it, or the chime from a subway station or a bus, or the tornado signal in our area. And that kind of stuff was almost like a tick, not like a diagnosable tick, but when I watch television, if I hear someone with an accent, I almost have to mumble it to myself to hear those sounds fall out of me. And so that started with me mimicking voices on the radio and from television, and then I would do those for my parents and they would giggle, and then my body would kind of light up. I felt it was a happy experience, and I also felt like a sense of purpose, and I was like, how can I morph this into something else?
The answer to Kristen's question was not immediately obvious. She grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, where acting for a living seemed like a far-fetched dream. Nevertheless, Kristen ignored the odds. She started taking voice lessons when she was a child, got an agent in grade school, and when the time came for college, she chose the theater program at NYU with an eye fixed on Broadway.
I dreamed of New York. The only thing I cared about was getting to New York as quickly as possible. And then at NYU, you're not supposed to audition, you're supposed to study your craft. And I was very focused on studying my craft, but I was also a rascal, so I was definitely auditioning all the time. And that's when I booked Tom Sawyer, which was my first Broadway show.
How did your teachers react?
Look, they weren't thrilled, okay? Neither were my parents, but I felt really confident. I said to my teachers, are you or are you not training me to be a professional actor? I felt like that was a checkmate question, and they were. But I said, this is the chance. And I said to my parents, yes, I will have to drop out of school, because I dropped out the beginning of my third year. But I said, what I want to do with my life, I don't have to have a degree for.
Did that work?
No, they still weren't thrilled. No one was thrilled. They were supportive, but everyone was really hesitant, because that's a big, if you're about to get a degree and you say, nah, forget it, I'm just gonna go start to work and see if I can be a struggling actor. No one who cares about your well-being is really like, great job. But thankfully, it worked out.
The decision, of course, worked out spectacularly. Just 3 years later, Kristen was cast in the hit series Veronica Mars, and her days as a struggling actor were over. She's been in the limelight ever since. But for all she's accomplished in front of the camera, Kristen says her greatest success has occurred off-screen in her long-standing relationship with her husband, the actor and comedian Dax Shepard.
Dax kind of opened my mind, my marriage opened my mind to that the world is so much more gray than you think it is, and there's so much more compassion to be had for the gray, because we're all just monkeys passing the time before we die, right? We're staying busy.
That's true. Yeah.
And there's a lot of mistakes that are made, but mistakes don't have to be filled with guilt and shame. They can be celebrated as learning experiences, and you can be honest about them. And I feel like I've become a lot more authentically me since I've met my husband, because he's been such a huge safety net of like, it's okay if you do things that you regret.
Right.
But most of all, what I think I've learned is that like life can be, if you choose, really about having fun with someone.
Oh, that's a wonderful thing to say.
Yeah, it can be. Like, look, we fight just as much as any other couple.
Sure.
But there's a trusting foundation underneath it that we've got each other.
Yeah.
And I believe he'd say the same.
Turning from Kristen to Dax, it was easy to see why they're so well matched. He shares her values, her Michigan background, and above all, just like Kristen, Dax is funny. He can find humor in just about any situation. But for Dax, it's a talent born of necessity. His parents divorced when he was 3 years old, leaving him to be raised by a young mother in the face of some daunting challenges. Jokes were a survival mechanism.
There was some chaos in the house, a lot of stepdads. And so my role was attempting at least to regulate the energy in the room. So if I could say something pretty funny before things boiled over, that I know that I've been doing that for a long time.
You were the peacemaker,
Yeah.
and you were trying to give everybody a gift.
And ultimately give me a gift. So all hell didn't break loose.
Dax's comic gift would propel his career, leading him from the improv stage to starring roles on sitcoms and films.
Oh, I like money. Wow, okay.
To his current role as the co-host and co-creator of Armchair Expert, the extraordinarily successful podcast. Dax's sense of humor would also serve him well romantically. He met Kristen at a low point in his life, but still had the presence of mind to be entertaining.
I had broken up with a woman that morning. So I was not in the market for anything. I was, in fact, quite distracted by the breakup.
Yeah.
I do remember she was there because she was telling this story about getting a 20% off Bed Bath & Beyond coupon in the mail and how ecstatic she was about that. And I remember thinking, this is pretty adorable that this movie star is this excited about 20% off. And then I learned maybe she was from Michigan at that time, and that made sense. I'm like, okay, we're both frugal, but there was no real connection. And then probably 3 weeks later, or 2 weeks later, I went to a Detroit Red Wings game playing LA Kings here in LA, and she too went because she's obsessed with the Red Wings. And I was with a friend, and we're halftime. We're going to get some concessions, and he starts talking to her. They know each other, and while they're talking, she says, "Hey, you were at Shauna's birthday party a couple weeks ago." I go, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." And then we started talking, and I thought, well, how did I miss this? This is like the most charismatic human I've ever met in my life. And we started talking, and we have never stopped talking or not been together for almost 17 years now.
During their years together, Dax and Kristen have worked with each other on films, launched a business, and most significantly, are raising 2 daughters. An experience, according to Dax, that has fundamentally transformed them both.
My story prior to having kids was my father left and I was the victim. And then about a year and a half into having our first daughter, I realized, oh no, he was the victim. It's so much more powerful on this side than it was on the child's side. Being a parent is so special and meaningful.
Yeah.
Kristen would say the same thing. We've been overly lucky in life. We've been to so many spectacular places and met spectacular people. And this is the single experience that I would not trade for anything in the world. This is the thing.
Dax and Kristen clearly share a profound bond. And when we looked at their roots, we saw that their family trees also had a great deal in common. Both have ancestors who were optimistic, even in the face of tremendous obstacles. It was time to bring their stories to light. I started with Kristen Bell, and with her maternal grandfather, a man named Bernard Fergier. Bernard was a beloved figure in Kristen's childhood, a source of immense affection, despite the fact that he'd endured a great deal of suffering.
He had a personality with us kids. The only side I saw of him was loving and joyful and playful and kind of ready for anything. He would always let us like sit on his lap and we would watch TV together, read the TV guide. He had a fake knee. He'd always let us trace his scar. He had his thumb ripped off and it looked like this, and he would let us sit there and play with it. Like, he was very loving. But I remember hearing from my mom about he had quite a bit happen to him during his lifetime. But I never saw that side of him. He either bottled it up or worked through it in therapy, and I don't think it's the latter.
Our researchers soon understood what Kristen meant. Her grandfather's warmth belied experiences that would have broken many people. The story begins in the National Archives, where we found Bernard joining the United States Army just months after Pearl Harbor.
Date of entry into active service, March 27th, 1942. Oh wow, he was 22. At Fort Benjamin, Harrison, Indiana. Military occupational specialty, platoon sergeant.
What do you imagine that was like for your grandfather, joining the Army at such a dark time?
I would imagine he was terrified. I think he was married to my grandmother at this point, and I imagine that, I mean, because I would be terrified, but I don't know. I guess I would love to ask some of my family what his thoughts were about it. Maybe he felt an honor and a duty to do it.
Did he ever talk about this stuff?
Not with the kids, no, not with the grandkids. I think he did later in his life to my mom and my aunt, but this is all new to me.
Bernard's service records tell a harrowing tale. His battalion spent over 600 days in combat, many of them on the front lines, fighting across Western Europe. Reports filed by his officers detail horrific conditions and extensive casualties. But they also reveal that Bernard proved himself a hero by rescuing a wounded comrade in the heat of battle, an act of bravery that earned him a Silver Star. Did you know about that?
I didn't know specifics. I knew that he had risked his life to save a couple people, and that's why he's got some medals hanging up.
Yeah.
But I didn't know the specifics.
On February 18th, 1944, your grandfather actually saved the life of a fellow soldier under heavy mortar and artillery fire.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of him.
Bernard himself was wounded in combat and was lucky to survive the war. But as we dug deeper, we were struck by just how much he'd already survived before he even put on a uniform. In the archives of Cleveland, Ohio, Bernard's hometown, we found a death certificate for his younger brother Joseph, who was killed in a car accident right in front of his family's home.
So this was my grandfather's little brother.
That's right, yes. And he died at just 5 years old of a fractured skull.
Yeah,
It's heart-wrenching.
yeah.
How do you think it affected your grandfather?
I don't even know how I would begin to describe that. It's horrific enough to think of seeing that happen to a stranger, let alone happen to another adult, let alone happen to another child when you're a child. I can't even begin to think of how he would have processed that. I guess the string of his life seems to be a lot of these traumatic events leading him to be this very grateful person when he was older.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a lot to take in.
In the wake of his brother's death, young Bernard suffered another loss. His father, a man named Frank Vergeer, abandoned the family. Frank is Kristen's great-grandfather, and neither she nor any of her relatives knew where he went or what became of him. His fate was simply a mystery. But we solved it, revealing that Frank eventually moved in with his sister near Hackensack, New Jersey, where he worked as a porter and maintenance man at a local hospital before passing away in 1966, more than 30 years after he last saw his children. At the time, your grandfather Bernard was 45 years old and living in Ohio, 430 miles away. Your mom was 13 years old.
Wow.
So she never met her grandfather.
Mm-mm.
What's it like to learn this?
You know, it seems like I don't, just putting the pieces together, if I'm looking at it from above, I think Joey's death really affected him. And I think that stands to reason when you think about losing a child and how it can uproot your entire existence.
Mm-hmm.
That level of pain. Parents aren't supposed to see their kids pass away before they do.
As it turns out, Frank had seen a great deal of suffering long before he lost his son. He was born in 1889 in a village in Poland, where his parents were farmers. And in the Polish State Archives, we found death records for 4 of his siblings, all of whom died before their 3rd birthday. We also saw that Frank's mother passed away when he was just 13 years old.
Heavy. Heavy, 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 heavy.
What's it like to see that?
I mean, this is very informative, and the deeper you go, the more you understand. You do that with characters that you're playing too, or any individual you try to have an interpersonal relationship with. Now I kind of understand why Frank, made a lot of decisions that might not have been on the up and up.
Yeah.
Oof. Oh, that's so sad.
We had one more detail to share regarding Kristen's great-grandfather. The passenger log of a ship that arrived at Ellis Island in September of 1910. On board was Frank, traveling on his own at the age of 21 years old, leaving his widowed father and his homeland behind forever.
Oh, wow.
What do you think that was like for Frank? Saying goodbye to his father back home, not knowing if he'd ever see him again?
He must have been gutsy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess a lot of 21-year-old young men could be gutsy. He clearly wanted to have a different life than his father. Yeah, wow.
After all that we've learned about Frank,
Yeah.
what do you think Frank would have made of Kristen?
Well, I would hope that he would be able to see that the generational trauma has waned a little bit. And then unfortunately, he got the short end of the stick having to go through all of it.
Yeah.
But it yielded some really happy results
Mm-hmm.
with me and my life and my kids.
You want to say poor guy.
Yeah. Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
And I hope he'd be happy to know that we're happy now.
Like Kristen, Dax Shepard was about to see his mother's family traced back from the familiar figures of his childhood to ancestors who lived in a far more forbidding world. The journey began in Sturgis, Michigan, at a roadside motel once owned by Dax's maternal grandfather, a man named Joel LeBeau. Growing up, Dax spent many happy hours here.
It was a very fun place to get lost and snoop around and go into utility closets and look at the ice machine and all this stuff. And my mother just adored my Pippi, we called him. Very self-made, taught himself pipe fitting, built a pretty good business, saved money, got homes, flipped them, had rental things, all to save up to buy this motel.
Wow.
And that was really his legacy.
He was an industrious dude.
Incredibly hardworking, industrious man who also loved the opera and loved plays.
Oh, yeah?
And was pretty cosmopolitan.
Huh.
It was his Frenchness. He was very proud of his Frenchness.
Monsieur LeBeau.
Yeah, totally.
We now begin to trace Joel's French roots, but it took us a very long time just to get out of Michigan.